Good morning, grade 5. Today we're going to start our first unit in the second term. The first unit is the friction. In this unit, we have two lessons. The first one is the friction, and the second one is the advantage and disadvantage of the friction. Let's start our first lesson. First, the friction. What's meant by the word friction? If you put your hands together, like this picture, and you start to rub your hands, so you will get two hands together and they will touch each other, and then you will move your hand in opposite direction to make it warm. We call this friction. So when two bodies touch each other and they are in the opposite direction, we call this there is a friction between our two hands. And also, if I'm having a moving car, so there will be a friction between the tire and the road. If I'm having a kid that's sliding on a slide, so there will be a friction between his body and the slide. So what's meant by the friction? The friction means two bodies that touch each other and move in the opposite direction. Like if you have a match and you rub it or you make a friction with the light box, so they touch each other, we call this friction. So if I told you what's meant by the friction force, so we're gonna say it's a force between two surfaces. We have two surfaces that touch each other and acts in the opposite direction of movement. Again, it's a force between two surfaces when they touch each other and acts in the opposite direction of the movement. What the friction do? The friction slow down the movement and decrease the speed. Again, the friction slow down the movement and decreases the speed. Okay. Then we have to know, let me tell you first, if you move on the ground, so there is a friction between your shoe and the ground. So again, my shoe touch the ground and they move. So we call this friction. They touch each other, so it's called friction. What are the factors that affect the friction force, or the friction force might be affected by what? We have three factors, which are surface area, surface material, and speed. Again, surface area, surface material, and speed. They all begin with S. Surface area, surface material, and speed. First, the surface area. What is the surface area of a moving object? The surface area means the space that it takes, if it's a small thing or a large thing. Like what? Like you see now in the picture, we're having a large piece of glass that moves on a wooden board, and then a small piece of glass on the wooden board. Which one will make more friction? Yes, the large piece of glass. Let's give you another example. If I take a book and let it move or touch your desk, and then I get a pen and let it move on the same desk, which one will make more friction? Yes, the book. Why the book? Because it takes more space or it's larger than the pen, so it has more surface area. If you rub a finger with your hand and then rub all your hand with the other hand, so which one will make more friction? When you rub both hands together. So as the body is large or it has more surface area, the friction force will be more. So by increasing the surface area, the friction force increase. And also, by decreasing the surface area, the friction force will decrease. So we said that between the surface area and the friction force, there is a direct relationship. What's mean by having a direct relationship? If you remember, we take it before, that's mean if the surface area increase, so the friction force increase too. And also, if the surface area decreases, so the friction will decrease. So they are the same. If this increase, the other will increase. If this decrease, so the friction force will decrease. So again, the friction force is directly proportional to the surface area. Again, what's mean by that? That's mean by increasing the surface area, the friction force increases. And by decreasing the surface area, the friction force decreases. The second factor that affect the friction is the surface material. What's mean by a type of surface? It's mean that the surface that you move on it may be rough, like the sand, or like the gravels, or like the stone, or maybe smooth, like the glass, like the ice, like the ceramic. If I'm having a ball, then I will kick it first on the sand and second on a ceramic. Which one will make more friction? Yes, on the sand, the ball will make more friction. It will touch the sand more than it will touch the ceramic. So on the rough surface, the friction force increases. But on the smooth surface, the friction force decreases. Let me tell you another example. Like, if you move on the sand and you move on the ice, where are you gonna make more friction? You're gonna make more friction, or there will be more friction between my shoe and the sand than the friction force between my shoe and the ice. And because the friction force is less on the ice, you might slide down. So again, if I'm having the rough surface, so the friction force increases. If I'm having a smooth surface, so the friction force decreases. The last factor that affect the friction force is the speed of the moving body. If I'm having two cars, one of the cars is moving with a low speed and the other is moving with high speed or fast. One is slow and the other is fast. So which one its tire will make more friction with the road? Which one will rotate more and make more friction? The one that is moving with the high speed, or the one that is fast. So if I increase the speed, the friction force will increase. If I'm moving fast, so I will make more friction force. But by decreasing the speed, the friction force will decrease. I want you to notice if you moved on the ground. First, move slowly, and second, move fast. When you're gonna make more friction, if you move fast, there will be more friction between your shoe and the ground. And also, if you rub your both hands together, first one slowly, and second, make it fast. When the friction force will be more, yes, if you rub your both hands together fast. So by increasing the speed, the friction force will increase. And by decreasing the speed, the friction force will decrease. So again, between the speed and the friction force, there is a what? A direct relationship. Excellent. And again, what's mean by direct relationship? It's mean if the speed increase, so the friction force will increase. And if the speed decrease, so the friction force will decrease. So again, I'm having three factors that affect the friction. First, surface area. And we said by increasing the surface area, the friction force increase. And by decreasing the surface area, the friction force decrease. And then the type of surface material. If they're rough, so the friction force increases. And if it's smooth, the friction force decreases. The last thing is the speed of the moving body. If the speed increase, the friction force will increase. And if the speed decrease, so the friction force decreases. So again, the friction force is directly proportional to what? Is directly proportional to the surface area and to the speed. Again, the friction force is directly proportional to surface area and speed. And in the rough surface, friction force increases, and between smooth surface, the friction force decreases. I hope that you understand this part of the lesson. We're gonna complete, if you study this part, please do classwork sheet 1 and homework sheet 1. And we're gonna complete the other part of the lesson in the next video, inshallah. Thank you. Bye.